Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Shimmer, and I am Shelby. Today I'm going to show you and teach you how to make butterfly earrings with no resin. First you need to find some fabric for your base color, or you can use a white like I did. Make sure it is not too thin or your paint will bleed through. You will need a pattern to use. I will link my shop so you can get my pattern and have the directions, measurements, and the type of materials I used. Take your pattern of mine or the one you made and tape it to your fabric. Take a pair of scissors and cut around it. I recommend fabric scissors because they do a cleaner edge and they're a lot easier to use. I made the mistake of using glue first. Do not do this. Make sure you paint all your details first. I had to test which method worked and what didn't. Do not glue any of your wings like I did all at once until you know that method works. Now you will need a flexible kind of glue for your fabric. I use tacky glue, but you can use whatever other glue you find that's flexible. I left the pattern on one side. It did not hurt it whatsoever. I did all my wings so they could all dry at once, which you can do this, but make sure you put your details down and your paint and whatever else on it first. It will take a whole day for one side, so do the same to the other side, and it will take a whole day for that. And you can actually peel your back off if you paint it, but you don't have to do that. It's water, it can stick, but the back peels off just fine because I left it on one side like a dork, but it doesn't hurt it if you glue it. Once that is done, I started with watercolors first. Make sure you do not use too much water like I did. Using my handmade palette and brush holders above for all my paints and tools. I actually made these with clay and spray painted them after I sealed them, and then I put lots and lots of layer of clear coat so they are waterproof, and they actually work great for my paints, and they're easy to clean. The brush holder keeps my brushes and tools in one place, and they work great to dry my brushes. Now this project is going to be a bit messy, so if you have a problem with glue and paint getting on you, use a pair of gloves. There's going to be fabric pieces, so make sure you keep your area tidy or it's going to stick together and ruin your wings. Now the tools I am using are paintbrushes, clay tools, and you can use whatever tools you fancy or just try different ones, but don't do them on your wings. Try them on like a different piece of fabric, like a scrap of fabric from the fabric you're using for your wings. Now I actually made these wings as Christmas gifts for my family, so that is why I made such a big batch, and it took me 4 days just to glue all the wings because I had to make 10 of them, and I broke them up because I have a bad back, and so sitting for a very long time hurts me, and it might take you less, but I did this a month in advance from now. Now I actually had over 3 hours worth of videos to break down for my YouTube video, and I sped it up and I took all the repetitive steps I did, so you didn't really have to see all of that, but I wanted you to see the process at a decent speed. This is still a little bit of a long video, but I think it's worth it, so you can see every step, every detail I did. Now like I said, I broke mine up, so it took me 2 days for all the wings to dry for my first layer, so that's front to back. It took another 2 days for the details for the line work, so that's another 2 days. Since it's fabric, it is going to take a little bit longer. That's why I let a whole day for one side to dry. So here's where I'm talking about where I painted and I left the pattern on by mistake, which it didn't hurt the pattern, which is great. So I'm going to be putting my base coats first, and I did 2 pinks, 1 yellow, 2 blues, 1 green, and 1 black pair. So enjoy that process. Like I said, it takes a whole day for one side to dry, so it takes 2 days for one wing. After all of that, you can do your line work, but you can also do it last. But I did my first, and after I did my black line work, I blended my colors, and it took 2 days to dry before I could add any of my details or shading. And then I added my whites and my other details and shadows later on, and that'll take a couple of days for it to dry. I find this part very satisfying to watch, so I hope you enjoy. But like I said, I did my glue first, so it was harder for me to keep my colors on the glue since it was slick. Here I am doing the other side of the green wings. I almost forgot to video the vein work on these wings, almost, and also the camera stopped at one point. process of adding darker shadows and details and blending. I did all the individual vein sections, and then I went in with the lighter green to blend them so everything would be nice and tidy. And I added, more coloring to it and just worked a lot on them. Now, if you are using watercolor, they are going to bleed, but any of your paints are going to bleed, so keep that in mind. Unless you use fabric glue and fabric paint, then stuff isn't going to bleed as much. Now, once your glue is dry, you are going to want to take scissors to the edges after you get everything detailed and everything. So I added watered down white, like I said, to light green, and added the highlights. But later on, I take regular white to do the highlights with, and that really brought it out. I added more depth, and I added more black later on to do, it bled a bit, which worked in my favor because it did the shadows, so I just tidied those up later on. this is where I am, and it looks messy, but I'm going to tidy these up later on, and they are going to look so much better. But see how messy my lines are? Using a paintbrush did too thick of lines for my liking, so I took a dotting tool to this. I forgot to mention, because I forgot to film some of it, I believe, or I didn't film at all, that I added glitter glue, acrylic paint, whatever you want to call it. It's acrylic paint, but it sealed everything a bit, and it really, like, it looked like a fairy tale, majestic, pretty, fantasy-like. So I really liked that, so I added that to all the wings. Now it's going to take 2 days for these wings to dry, and it is important that it dries because you have to add a clear coat later on, or some kind of protective layer over it. Here I am adding the acrylic glitter to the wings. If you're using watercolor, be careful, seal them first before you do this. It took 2 days to dry. Add some kind of a clear coat or protective layer over it, and that takes 2 days as well. I put a couple layers, and after all that's said and done, put a small hole in your wings, and I used a sharp clay tool, but you can use whatever tool works best for you. I added jump rings to the wing itself. I added a small bead, or you can use a charm if you want. You don't have to have the bead or anything, on an eye pin, or you can use a jump ring, and you can do this with whatever size. I wanted mine to look delicate, so I did a small size for these. Now for my wings, I put beads that are the color of the wings, and they are tiny glass beads. So when you do the holes, it's going to take you a bit to do it, and they might stretch, so be very careful with them. And if that's the case, try to seal them and redo it. This might take you a little bit of time to do, so keep that in mind. Now when this is all said and done, when you got everything you need, do some kind of backing for it. I used a rubber one, and then you can do a backing card or earring card to keep them safe, or you can store them however. But be careful with the wings because they can stick a little bit, so watch them. But a matte clear coat is better if you want to go that route. I am using jewelry tools. I should have told you that sooner. So I got snips and pliers, and the round pliers as well, and flat ones, which would tweezers of some kind would probably help pick up the small jump rings if you use those in small pieces. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and the end result will be at the end of the video. And leave a like and a comment, and subscribe if you haven't already so you don't lose me. And this whole process took me 2 weeks to do, but you can probably do it faster if you wanted to. So I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!